we're going to go over your stuff today, Greg, of course. And then Gary and I were also, Gary's got a deal on the line too. So, I mean, after we go over your stuff, Greg, whenever that is, for anybody that's on here, we will go and switch over to Gary's stuff too. So,
I'm going to get back to the beach after mine.
What's that?
I'm going to get back to the beach. Hope you
I
don't
love
take offense that I drop off.
Oh, I take zero offense. I take zero, of course. Yeah. All right.
And
Well, let's
maybe another one of these.
make it
Pecan beer.
3, make it 8, make it 12. But all right, man. Well, cool. Let's get into it. Let's chat about, what you got going on, man. You got some really, I think, some home run deals coming up. Before we jump in though, Mel and I were texting back and forth earlier just about, as time goes on, I think what we can really create is just a really cool kind of a template for when we do have these conversations and you have like the deal, for example, like being able to just to plug and play into a template that we kind of create. And then you can present that to the group, in our forum or, on the school. And then once you present that, that allows everybody to invest. But of course, it's like everybody can get their eyes on it, underwrite the deal themselves. But then when we do our live calls, you can present it that way. You can get 15 minutes to present it. I can go over it too, how I would look at it, so we can all just be on the same page as to how we're underwriting the deals. So, but man, go into give us the meat and potatoes of what you got going on, man.
So it all started with a business networking group. So I think everybody should know that that's important. It's like a BNI, Business Networking International, but it's a local one here in Birmingham called Millionaire Makers. And it was actually one of my associates attending and did the spiel and knows that we were doing this commercial collective. And then the agent came to me, introduced via email, and she immediately said, I've got a motivated seller ready to go. And that's when we started looking at it. I shared it with you. You said, here's where you need to go in on cash. Here's where you need to go on partnering against Uncle Sam. And she really, the whole pro forma, she was impressed with all of that. And she just knows that her seller is motivated, elderly, wanting to cash out. So they want to go with the cash offer. So the list price was $299. We came in at 170. And then they countered back at low twos. And then at the event, at the collective, you're like, just do 191 and some funny numbers. So I came up with 191, 141. And I said, that's where my financial advisor capped me.
Nice.
And she was like, well, you just want me to say 190 and just to leave that little tad bit on the bone for me. I was like, hey, this girl's going to work for us.
Nice.
And so she came in at 190 and they accepted.
Let's go.
So it's everything that you said it was going to be when you're dealing with all the right check boxes. I mean, it's harder to get out of bed in the morning, to tell you the truth. And so the upside that we're looking on this bad boy is 500,000 plus. So
Sure.
it's pretty amazing. I got the earnest money today. I emailed them from the beach to my bank, Service First Bank. If you guys are local in Birmingham or want a bank local, they cut the check for me. They used their postage. They paid for it and they mailed it and sent me proof that it was done. I forwarded it to the broker. She's like, all right, we checked that box. So we're officially consummated with earnest money as of today. And so at this point going forward, then Greg's already going to take a look at it with me on Friday, and we're going to figure out that price per square foot. I mean, you guys got 9 and some change, which would actually shoot the value through the roof, like in the 600s.
Yeah, that'd be
but we're being conservative at 6, which puts it in the 500s. So,
well, let's do this, Greg. If you're good with it, what if I share my screen? You give me the metrics and stuff, and I'll punch it into the pro forma. Okay. Everybody can get their eyes on it because again, I'm recording this, so then we'll put this on for other people that are, of course, potentially going to want to invest with you. So okay. Is that good with you guys, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. All right. So this is still from the pro forma from last night, talking about Grant's deal. So it excites me that everyone's just like moving and shaking, man. It's awesome. So, all right, we'll just say 123 Main Street. We can keep, the situation, I think it's in Trustville right now, right?
No, this one's the Bessemer, like 6 minutes from your place. It's the one I asked you to drive by when
Oh
we were
yeah,
already in the
yeah, that's right.
neighborhood, but I got shut down.
Oh, you definitely got shut down. All
You
right,
didn't want me
so
to
here we
steal
go.
your thunder. That's what it
That's
was.
right. All right, so we're in Bessemer, Alabama. What's the square footage, Greg?
7,700.
7,700. Do you have an idea?
70, I'm sorry, 7,500. Excuse me.
7,500. Okay. Do you know what the value of the land is?
I do not.
All right. Well, shit. Let's just do it real quick. Let's just go find it.
Okay.
I just think it's because then this will be for your. Ooh, this is new.
You got the link to the email if you just search my
This is
my
new.
last emails.
Um,
Or I can message you the
I have
address
not
as
seen
well.
this already. So, property search. Okay. Well, all right. Well, just tell me what the address is.
Okay. Yeah, it's under contract, so I can share that.
Let me
It
look
is 301 4th Street North.
at this. They have updated this. So, this is interesting. Okay. I'm not gonna
They've
lie.
updated what?
This is throwing me off because I was not expecting to
Uh,
see this new citizens access portal. So, okay.
okay, gotcha.
So is this the seller right here?
Yeah, Mr. Senior. Yep.
All right. So land value, you see it, $6,800, right? Land value. All right. And of course, this is just for
It's
the depreciation purpose.
and just so you know, it's two parcels too.
Both parcels. Okay. So both of these guys. All right. Well, property address.
Well,
Okay.
what's the $1 million one over here?
This is a different. This is the same, almost the same address. This must be just. Oh, this is probably just that other parcel. So land value 170,000 plus 68,000 or 6,800. So 176,800. That's what I'm gonna use. Is that fair with everyone? 176,800.
Yeah, so
Wait a
both
minute,
both
Greg, didn't you
parcels.
just say that you made an offer for like 190 and that value on that property was 1 point something? So that can't be,
No, not 1 point something. Not no. It's for 301 and 305 4th Street North in Bessemer.
Okay. Well, maybe this is different then.
that
Well,
that
again,
might
I
be a
don't know.
business.
I don't know the situation on this. Again, I'm going to be honest. I did not expect to see this citizens access portal. This is brand spanking new. So,
So this is how
um,
they look in Texas, Nolan.
well, this
So
is new. Yeah, this is new to me.
is there a business there, Greg?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the business right there, the million something, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to use 50 grand. Okay. That's really not that important to be totally transparent with you, but I just like to have something on there. So let's use 40 grand. Fair?
Okay.
All right. Okay. So you got it under contract for 190, Greg?
Correct.
190. All right. And then you said that you're running the numbers at $6 a square foot. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
But you leased your place at 9 and change.
Yeah.
Greg said it had higher ceilings, so he thinks we can get really close to what you got. So in the 8 range, I think would still be conservative, but let's just do, for the sake of super conservative, $6 today.
Yeah, I think just being conservative out of the gate, because here's the thing is you underwrite it this way, and then Greg comes back and says, hey, we got 850 a foot. Then you're just like, then it's
Go to
just a
Vegas.
dunk. Yeah. But I think that's a smart move. Let's just underwrite this. So we're so far 7,500 square feet, 3,750 a month in monthly rent makes it $6 a square foot of rent. Right now, our expenses, we have no taxes, no insurance, because that's on the tenant, right? I think that you said, Greg, you're going to be, what do you say? You got it. You're going to have to deploy some cash. Is that accurate?
Yeah, still figuring that out, if it's going to be all cash or some debt and some cash, the hybrid type deal.
Well, either way, I think we run the numbers with some debt because it'll just make the deal different. Or we can run it both ways, really. I think let's look at it with debt first, and then we can switch it over to cash, and then you can get your eyes on it. But let's just get conservative here, 75%, which means we're deploying 25% of equity. So this number, this is the estimated settlement statement. So this is, again, this is overpriced. Like I overpriced this. You're probably not going to have to inject this much money. Like it's probably closer to like 40 grand, maybe even less. What's 90 times 25? 190 times 0.25. 47 grand. So this is overpriced by like $8,000. So you're going to probably inject less than this. Maybe, but still, I like to just overprice it. So you're going to get a loan for $142,000 at 8.5%. That's where I got quoted like a month ago. So that's probably where it's at. 20-year amortization. That's going to make your debt service, our amortization schedule. Your monthly payment is going to be $1,237 a month on that debt service. And if you get creative, because of I look at it and think, because of the nature of the deal where you're buying a vacant space, it's a vacant building, your banker is going to want to give you some type of interest only loan out of the gate, just to kind of, relieve some pressure on the fact that you don't have a tenant yet servicing that debt, bringing in that income. So if you go down, it's probably going to be, you're probably only going to have to be paying, what's your debt service on this one? Interest only debt service for, 12,000. I mean, you're looking at $1,000 a month, or, literally $1,000 a month for 6 months or whatever, while you're finding that tenant. Does that make sense? Okay. And then of course you got Greg out there looking, but I mean, again, just to look at the math of, if everyone remembers what we were talking about last night, trying to find a debt service ratio that's over 1.4. And again, just to be clear, our debt service ratio, if we have a net operating income of $125,000 and our debt service is $100,000, the debt service coverage ratio is the net operating income, and you divide it by your total debt service. So in this case, again, you're bringing in $45,000. Your debt service is $14,000. And so you just divide this number by this number, and you get over 3. So realistically, any bank will look at this and just be like, holy cow, how did you find this? Like, what an awesome deal. Like, way to go. That's great news, So, I mean, that's awesome. Of course, just where the deal is. Of course, then you get down here to cash on cash return. I mean, it's just psychotic. I mean, 51% return just in the very first year. But kind of where your head is, and I think that's where my head would be, is I'd want to lease this thing up and either refinance it at a current valuation of where, the cap rate is in the market, or I want to flip it to another investor to buy it at a 10 cap or a 9 cap or whatever. So if we did the math to go back up here and look at just a refinance and exit cap rate, you're looking at a valuation of almost $600,000, which is incredible. It's unbelievable. You're buying something at 190. Now, I will say this too, in the estimated settlement statement, I probably could include like a leasing fee for Greg, because he's going to lease this up at whatever the price is, and you're going to be charged 4% based upon the gross amount of lease. So if he, for example, you go and buy this building and it rents for $3,750 a month. I don't know the math off the top of my head, but basically, let's say it's a 5-year lease. Over these 5 years with 3% rent bumps increases, that's going to be a total amount of rent. And then you're going to multiply that by 0.04. And that's going to be Greg's commission on that leasing fee, or that's his leasing commission. So, you can deduct that from, this sales price, which is going to be small. It'll be like 10 grand or something, but it's the price of definitely playing poker. But of course, even if you go and sold it at a 10 cap, you're still looking at, rolling the dice at $537,000 at a sales price, just by being, but I think what's cool about it is it really shows the power of commercial real estate. Like, finding a deal in a cul-de-sac, all the houses are going for $250, and you bought this thing for $190. Like, in residential, that's a good deal, right? Like, that's a good deal because you got it, 30% under market. You have no upside in residential. You cannot go and increase the value of a property in a cul-de-sac past what's in the comps, like past what the value around it is. You can't do that like what you can do it here. I mean, if something changes in the market and interest rates or in the cap rate gets suppressed down to 7.5%, I mean, look what happens to the value. Turns into 700,000, So now we can't, of course, really change the cap rate in the market. That's just depending upon what people are willing to trade at. But man, you're looking at even a 10 cap, you're looking at being able to pop this thing for $500,000+. At basically, again, we didn't include any of the rehab cost or any tenant improvements. But even if you injected another 50 grand into this deal, you're in it for 250. You're doubling your money. You're doubling your money, in 90 days or more or less, So what questions or what thoughts does anybody have, and you can make this actually probably even a little bit hotter, just by, your cash on cash will go up, your debt service ratio will go down. But at the end of the day, what's our most important metric? Cash on cash. So, but just running this a straight up and down deal. I mean, this is a slam dunk, Greg. I mean, you turned over rocks and you found a diamond, man. That's awesome. So what thoughts or questions do you got on this, Greg, or anybody else that's kind of on our call right now? Anybody have thoughts on this?
What would the bank look at if I want to do a cash out the equity? What metric would they look at? The rent?
So there's two metrics, and I kind of look at it from over here. This is this far right box, year 5 maximum, and I think I even misspelled maximum, but loan analysis. You've got the loan to value approach, and you got the debt service coverage ratio approach. And so most banks are not going to go because the loan to value approach is going to be different because interest rates are going to change. But if you go off the debt service coverage ratio approach, that just means that, this is kind of the metric that I was talking about earlier, where I say, try and find something above 1.4, but banks will lend at 1.25. So you're looking at this allowable debt service is $40,000 on this deal because your gross income on this deal is $45,000. So you would take $45,000, divide it by 40,000, and that's going to get your debt service ratio of 1.25. So you look at basically being able to cash out 250 grand in tax-free refinance capital. Now, I don't know which bank, you can go to any bank you want on that. Most banks would like to see like 6 months of seasoning that lease just to make sure that, hey, this tenant's paying, whatever, before they just write you a check for $250,000 and you get abducted by aliens and, go to Alaska, or wherever. But at the end of the day, though, too, the bank's going to do the math. I mean, they're just going to do the math the same way, that you and I would. So, I mean, of course, you can change this 1.5. That's just going to change where you're going to be able to refinance out. But I mean, still at the end of the day, you're looking at being able to really cash out some money.
And that's factoring in me putting down 20-25% and then them financing the debt initially.
Yeah, well, if you're going to initially, borrow money, they're probably going to ask you to wait even like 18 months to refinance that. But if you bring cash out of the gate and then you go in and say, hey, now we're going to have the opportunity to go in and not refinance, but actually cash out your equity, they'll go after this debt service coverage ratio approach.
257 is taken into effect the 190 in capital that's already been at the principal. That's what's left over after the principal's payback.
The 383 minus, what you initially injected, which was the initial senior loan of 142,000. I believe that I did this thing a while ago.
Okay.
This is also after 5 years. So there's going to be some principal pay down on this. There's going to be, the interest rate or your rents are going to be higher because you have a 3% rent bump in that lease. So this is describing in month 60 what you're going to be capable of doing. This isn't describing year 1.
Okay. So selling to an investor, what am I looking at on like taxes and depreciation? Those items.
Estimated settlement statement, I'd say this is again year 5. If you sell it after 60 months, your sales price is going to be $537. If you had some principal because you borrowed money, you're going to pay that off. You're going to pay some interest. You're going to pay any of these fees. You're going to pay commissions. You know, you're going to walk away with 378. That's going to be what's due to the seller in year 5, right? So it might be different, you know, it'd be different if you didn't have a mortgage, you know, it's just dependent upon, you know, what you're trying to do. I think the most important thing right now is that you get with Greg and y'all start like working to get a lease done, finding somebody to lease that space, having a contractor. If you need my guy, getting somebody's eyes on, you know, what Greg's going to say is, okay, this type of tenant is interested in this kind of space. And then that guy's going to say, okay, well, I need this type of build out in order to move in and pay this amount of money, you know? So and that's where that's just pure negotiation at that point. And I can walk with you through that too. Okay. So anyone else have, what's on your mind?
Would you be able to meet out there Friday?
What's that?
Would you be able to meet out there Friday?
I can't meet out on Friday. I've got a guy coming in town actually from Toronto. He's a mentor of mine. So I'm out on Friday, but I can probably get out there on Monday and I'll charge you for gas and lunch and beers. So
not a problem.
Mel, what's on your mind?
On your settlement statement, I noticed that like 6 months of taxes are not included in that closing. Is that not necessary in commercial?
Prorated real estate taxes. I've got it for some
516.
reason. Assumptions E5. Well, I guess the reason why this is showing a 0 is because you know, you'd be collecting that every month, right? I mean, this is kind of what we were saying last night's call, is that like when Grant was talking about, oh, well, it's, you know, it's $7 a foot, but then they charge another $3 a foot for triple net lease. But like you could go and say, I don't personally include any expenses on my underwriting, even though I'm going to be receiving that income. I'm going to be receiving the prorated taxes and insurance every single month. At the end of the year, I don't keep any of that money. It goes to the insurance and it goes to the taxes. So I would say that you've been
brought at closing. Don't you need to pay that up 6
you
months?
Do. You would. Closing? You would have that. You'd have that in your escrow account. So like, let's say the taxes were $5,000 and it's been 6 months that you have been 6 months, $5,000 in taxes. That's probably not what it's going to be, but 5,000 in taxes divided by 12. So $416 a month that your tenant would be paying you. Basically that goes into an escrow account. Multiply that by 6, that's $2,500. So you would have an extra $2,500 in your checking account because your tenant has been paying that. So you're really at like a net 0. If that makes sense. Yeah, you've got more money in your checking, but it's not really yours. It's going to the government. Does that answer your question? Like,
sorry, I think, okay, I'm sorry. I meant when you originally purchase it, don't you have to calculate that into your original closing costs? Not when you're selling it and have it like after 5 years. I'm talking about like today, if he was to close on this building today, wouldn't hit like 6 months of property taxes need to be included in his closing costs like you do when you close residential? Or is that not the same?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the attorney's going to do that. You don't have to like do the math on that. I mean, it's like, you know, they're going to be paying whatever's been in the rear. You're going to be paying moving forward. And then when Greg leases up the space, well, then that tenant is just going to start paying prorated taxes each and every month moving forward. So maybe that gap from when he closes to when he finds a tenant, let's say it's 4 weeks or 4 months, I don't know, however that long of a space that's in between where he doesn't have a tenant, Greg is on the hook to pay those taxes and insure the building. But until he finds that tenant to come in, that's when those costs are brought onto the tenant.
But where is that accounted for? I mean, in like your closing costs, like down here in your equity line, I can't scroll down. So in your closing costs, like right here, so 10,008 whatever on your closing costs. On your very tab. On your 10,824, what percentage of that is taxes, 6 months of taxes that you have to pay at closing?
You don't have to pay them up front. You're going to get a credit at closing for that. You'll get a credit. Pro rata taxes and insurance.
Rent.
For some reason,
So
I don't
it's
know why.
The real estate, I mean, residential.
It's no different. The closing's the same. I'm honestly a little confused as to like.
So when you go to a closing for a residential here, and I would assume this would work all, they're gonna ask like 6 months versus of real estate taxes be paid in. Obviously, that's gonna go sit in an escrow, but that adds to the amount that you have to bring to the table at closing. So here in Texas, that's how a residential is closed. You're bringing 6 months of taxes, and you're usually, they'll honestly sometimes put a year of insurance premiums in your closing costs too. It goes to escrow for you, but you've got to have that cash on hand at closing day.
All right. Well, if that's what you have to have, you got to have it, I guess. I'll just be totally transparent. This is more of an estimated cost. I'm estimating. I mean, I look at this as, that's why I said earlier, I was like, I'm just ballparking this. Like, this is not reality. I mean, these are all just, I just put these numbers in here, right? I mean, it's just a percentage. I mean, every one of these numbers is not truly accurate towards this particular deal. I'm just ballparking it so I can get a better idea of what I'm going to have to bring. But 3 days before you close, the attorney's going to shoot me the estimated settlement statement. It's going to have, this is going to come down to the penny. I mean,
No, and I understand. And the only reason I asked that, because it's a substantial number here. Like, our property taxes are absolutely astronomical compared to Alabama's. And so that's
state income tax. That's the kicker, and it's different, right? It's not right or wrong. It's just, and here's the thing. I think really for you, Mel, when you have on your estimated settlement statement, I think, again, I'm not telling you what to do or how to run, your pro forma, but I would, change this number or this pro rata tax and insurance. I mean, maybe, and this also kind of just shows you're closing the deal in the middle of the year. I mean, who's to say that you don't close this deal at the very end of the year or the very beginning? I think you can make this number really whatever that you want it to be, and you can create the formula that, maybe pertains particularly to your Texas deals, if that's fair. Okay. All right, Greg, any other thoughts on that one, Greg? I don't want to get too off topic there, but I appreciate the thoughts on that. It's something I hadn't really looked into regarding the taxes, but I think that's a little into the weeds, at least for Greg's surface level deal. But I'm glad you brought that up because I wouldn't have known that. Thoughts, questions on this? I mean, I feel like, and again, we can go more over the details of this as kind of you get closer. But I think the next step on this one, Greg, too, is creating some type of like proposal for finance to the group, figuring out how you want to do it, having a proposal for financing to banks, showing them, hey, this is the deal that we have. This is the estimated rent per foot, showing, and I even have that. Like, let me show you what it looks like.
What are the timeline that it would take for me to meet with the bank and them look at it and then them get financing prepared? I mean, yeah, we've got 60 days, but like, what are some hard and fast dates and time schedule from closing where things have to be done? Obviously, it's first commercial deal, so a lot different than residential. I know I got, residential down pat. So just curious, what are some hard and fast dates that you can't miss, discussions with banks? And then, I would like to know who in the group would, if they could raise their hand, then we have sidebar discussions on what this might look like working together, then that would be nice to know in the next few days.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most important thing now is shooting out information to bankers. Like, I think when we first started up, what I was doing when I was, and I can introduce you to some of the guys that I know. I might have already done that already. I'm not sure, but I can of course introduce you to like 3 or 4 bankers that I've worked with in Birmingham. And I think immediately send them over your personal financial statement, past couple of years of tax returns. That way they can kind of financially get to know you. And then after that, they're going to look at the deal. I mean, they're going to look at the real intrinsic value is not based upon, you're being able to repay. It's going to be based upon this tenant and their strength. and their ability to, you know, pay this rent every month, because they're focused on this debt service, right? They're focused on this 15 grand a year coming in that, or, you know, again, when you refinance or whatever, but they're focused on, you know, the debt service. They're making sure that tenant's going to be able to service that debt every month, you know?
From the
So
time I send them the paperwork to the time we get money released from the bank, what's the best case, worst case timeline that you've seen? 30 days,
regarding
20 days,
getting a deal done,
45? Yeah, from them like receiving the financials to underwriting it to financing the deal. Like, do they need 45 days minimum? Do they need 30 days minimum?
I mean, I'd say minimum 30 days. They can get deals done in 45 days. You know, I've seen deals go, shit, you guys know I've got a deal that I did over a year and a half. It took a year and a half to close, but I've also closed deals taking 45 days. So it's kind of just like, if you got that relationship, which again, I can introduce you to, and then they financially see you and they're understanding you, you say, this is the deal. This is how I underwrote it. This is how we plan to lease the space up. This is the building. This is the location. They're going to go get an appraiser out there. They're going to appraise it. And as long as it's above the purchase price, which if you know that it's going to probably appraise for higher than that, then you're slam dunk home run. You're off to the races. So I would say that just get that stuff over to them by the end of the week, get the ball rolling. I can even shoot that connecting email to them. And then that way you can kind of have an introduction, send them all your stuff. They'll look at you and they'll say, yeah, I'll look at this deal. It sounds good. I mean, it's, you know, it's a good base hit deal. It's a good first deal. You get in the weeds with them, you start servicing debt to them, then you're able to go to the next one and take off. That would be my opinion.
Okay. All right, let's do that.
Cool. All right. That sounds good. Let's transfer over here. Greg, thank you for being on today, man. Go enjoy another cold beverage. We're gonna switch over here to Gary and his deal. This is a more not unique deal, but I know that you've got a couple different things rolling in, and I wanted you out of the gate kind of talk us through what you're doing and you know what's the background on your deal.
Yeah, I would say compared to Greg's deal is a grand slam. This might be more of a base hit or a hit by pitch type of deal.
Hit by pitch.
It's interesting. So my broker sent me it. We checked it out last week, and I met the owner there and everything. He's like 88 years old. He does service work on forklifts, strictly just forklifts, and he's looking to like just get out of it and retire, and literally wants to sell everything, the equipment in there, even his book of business too, and obviously the real estate. So he's just trying to, you know, be done. And from what my broker's telling me, he seems pretty motivated to get this going. So I was talking to Nolan yesterday about it. He has like $65,000 worth of equipment in there that
has that been appraised?
Sell or
has someone come in and say, yes, I would buy that for 65?
No, I have an equipment list, and I'm not actually sure exactly. It's probably just an estimate. I'm assuming from him, or it actually might have been appraised. That's one question I didn't ask. I should have, but I do have a list of equipment that they sent me. But yeah, I'm not actually sure if it's actually was appraised. So that is a good question I should ask.
Well, and you know, you don't need some guy. I would just get like an auction guy over there. That's kind of what I've done in the past. Just some auction guy. He's going to get a slice of whatever he sells, you know, and he's going to say, "Oh shit, you got some money on this thing," or he's going to say, "You know, like Grant's deal last night. You know, your stuff's not worth anything." You know, so I would just get once you get the true kind of intrinsic value of that equipment, I think it's going to allow you to shape your offer that much more. So go into the weeds. Tell us a little bit more details of like, you know, and I can start filling this information out and we can just piece the deal together and just see, you know, look at the math.
Yep. So square footage is 5,460. Value of the land is 39,100. And then talking with my broker, he said anywhere from like 9 to 10 rent per square foot. So if you're at 4,000 is right under 9.
Let's call it 4,350. Is that fair?
Sure.
You say $8 to $10?
9 to 10 around
All right,
there.
just let's use this. Yeah, 4, whatever. Let's just use that for now. Yeah, it's kind of in the middle.
Okay.
All right. Where are we at purchase price?
And he has it listed for 550,000.
Okay.
And he has obviously the equipment included into that price.
Okay.
And his book of business, which I called my broker about that. And I'm like, well, what value is that? Like the book of business. And he was like, I'm not really sure either. I don't know what. So
Did he show any of like the numbers on his business?
no, I didn't see any of that. No.
You
He's
know,
been in business for like 55 years.
wow.
And the place is beautiful. Like it's not like a regular auto shop. Like it's pristine, like very clean. It has a nice little office space there for him and 2 bathrooms, and there's actually another 2 rooms upstairs for like extra storage.
Is there a mezzanine in it?
No,
Okay.
it's like 2, maybe they might be 200 square foot upstairs just for extra storage.
So tell me, so you're thinking that this guy might want to seller finance at all?
That too. I brought up my broker and he talked with him and he said he'd be willing to leave like 30%
Wow.
in the deal.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So just being preliminary here, honestly, I think we run the numbers a little bit less. I think we run them at
I was gonna say like I would say 9 or even like 850 just to be conservative.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Let's say 850, 390.
I think it could be rented on the higher end because like I'm not kidding. Like we toured a couple other buildings that day and like just if you just picture like a auto shop, like you just picture a lot of grease and like just nasty and gross. Like it was like really nice, super nice. Like I think if any guy that wants to rent that goes in there is gonna be like, wow, like I want to rent, this spot for real.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to just go in quickly on what my initial thought is because I was saying it last night too, that again, you'll be purchasing this building vacant. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay. So if you're buying it vacant, you need to be rewarded for taking on risk because this space you're not earning this right now, right? You're not earning this rent per foot. This is just again a prediction. It's a hope. We're not basing this on really. Yeah, we might be able to get more, which it sounds like you probably will, right? But also too, this seller needs to understand that even if he's willing to leave money in the deal, he can't sell it for this price because he's pricing this as if the building is already cash flowing and he's trying to sell it at a rate of return. There is no return because currently right now, that's the income on it. Right. I mean, if we really want to get philosophical, the math is there is no income. So how are we able to pay a price of something that out of the gate, you're the one servicing debt? So I think it's very, I mean, I'm not gonna say audacious of them or anything. I think it's again kind of philosophical, but my opinion is too though is that you need to be rewarded for taking on risk because meaning that this building, if you're gonna buy it for 550 with no cash flow, this building when you go and lease it up needs to be worth like at least 900 grand. Like you need to be buying a property at like 45% off of what its intrinsic value is when the building is leased versus buying it at an 8.5 cap, hoping to get this amount of money in rent. Does that make sense? Do you follow that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like this building needs to be, if he's going to sell this for 550, because look at this, look at the sales price on this building at a 10 cap in 5 years, or even if you want, we can pump it a little bit. We can say it's, at a 9 cap, it's 620 or whatever. But also too, I mean, there's not a whole lot of spread in there, you're not, the deal at his purchase price. He's trying to sell it at where the value could be. if it's rented and you pay leasing costs and you service debt. Like, you're taking on a lot of risk, even if he's willing to, leave money in the deal, which is cool. But I don't think it makes sense to buy a property at a rate of return when right now there is no rate of return. So my thought would be is like, go back to him. If we think we can get this, which it sounds like you think you can get more, maybe even $10, which of course that really ease some pain, of course, that'd make the deal sweeter. But we can't underwrite the deal based upon that, because that's based on hope. So we don't have certainty in that assumption. So I'd go in and, I mean, 400 grand. I mean, it's just like, do you have a leasing guy that has any, potential leads or ideas of like?
Yeah, he said there's one. He's got one so far.
Okay. Just curious on that. I mean, again, it's got, if you were to just, let's go back really quickly. If we were to go back to 550, you've got
550 doesn't work at all.
Of under 120. Now, again, it's just the math, because, that's just where, and again, we could try and get this thing to 25 years, 25, let's say 25 years. I mean, it makes it a little bit sweeter, but then your banker's going to ask you to put maybe even, I don't know. I don't want to mess with the terms of the debt. I kind of just want to hold it at where it is, because then it's just to give us a more like consistent view of what the actual return is going to be.
Yeah.
Like, I look at this and think 75% loan to value, which, let's say that you get down to the wire and the guy says, hey, I actually don't want to carry, right? Then you're kind of just like, oh shit, now I'm in a spot. And the bank says, hey, we're only going to give you 75% or whatever. I don't know, but I look at 75%, 20-year amortization at where debt is today, unless you can get really cute, but 8.5%. I mean, that just runs the debt service ratio down, to 1.11. So and again, the assumption is that this rent is low, which it might be, but it's also an assumption. We don't know. So my real thought is we can increase the rents, we can decrease the purchase price, or we can get cute with the terms of the debt. There's really kind of no other, the three metrics that we can mess around with that are really going to change. Because this is really, I mean, as you know, this is the number one thing that banks are going to look at. They're going to run the numbers on this, and they're going to run them probably even more conservative. They might even run it at $8 a foot, And so then they're like, man, this doesn't even check. Now, I mean, your rent just covers your debt service. And what happens if you have to put a roof on? Then you're underwater.
Yeah.
You're paying leasing I mean, think about it. You pay leasing commissions, which is going to be whatever, 10 grand, which isn't going to break the bank, but $10,000, and you've got no income on it. There's no money in it. It's going to take you 5 years just to pay the leasing commission off, So that would be my assumption. I think out of the gate, most importantly, I think the first step on this one is to get a stronger assumption on what we can really rent it for, like figuring out what a tenant, or having a couple options on tenants and what they can pay. I think the seller financing opportunity is big, but I think the most important aspect right now is this purchase price. I think it's just really overpriced, and the guy's just, he can include the equipment, but if you said, hey, I don't want the equipment, and he thinks it's worth $65,000, which again is another assumption, the the deal checks maybe a little bit better, but it's still tight, and you're taking on the risk because you don't have a tenant yet. So I just think you're taking on a lot of risk with not a ton of upside. Like, the asymmetric risk for you is negative versus positive. If that, meaning like you don't have to put up any money, and you have this massive upside to double your money in a year, versus you taking on all this risk. And really the asymmetric risk is if something happens in the deal that doesn't go perfectly, you lose money,
Yeah.
So that would be my, what other thoughts or questions does anybody else, I guess it's just us three now, but, does anyone, I mean, what's y'all's, I mean, I hope that I'm like making sense, or at least being on the same page with like where your head is on it.
Yeah, I think he obviously just has it overpriced. I was thinking like 100 grand off, or even closer, like you said, 400, like 4 to 450. I was more what I wanted to talk to you today about. If you scroll down more,
Yeah. Let's do this.
like the second position, like do you put that in? Like, let's say if he does want to leave money in the deal, or is that something different over there? The second position
No. So
mortgage.
let's look at it. So let's say that the equity that we're injecting is 137,420, right? This is from here. So let's go 137,420. And what interest rate do you think he'll give you? Or what was he?
I don't know. What have you kind of?
I mean, I kind of go with 8%. People feel comfortable with
I was
that.
gonna say, yeah, 8, yeah.
All right. 8%. So if we scroll down here, you're just negative. You're losing $2,000 a year because you're servicing debt. You're servicing debt
Put
to
the price at 400.
What's that?
Keep with the price at 400. Keep with the price at 400.
So debt service, a little nicer, 1.5, which is solid.
Mm-hmm.
You got upside at that point because you can, maybe have higher rents. Servicing debt. Here's the second mortgage debt service is $11,000 a year. So basically, you're bringing in 31,000 plus 10,990. So that total debt service is like 42, and that's where you got that number, basically. So it's like 46. So does that make you follow that?
Okay.
So 46.
Yeah, I was wondering where that. Okay.
It's like 46,800 minus 31,000 minus your debt service, which is 11,000, and that leaves you with $4,500 a year of net cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know why this percentage is like that, but whatever. You're bringing this amount of money in. That's your cash flow. So I think, and of course, if you can get some interest only out of the gate too, that would alleviate some, some pressure. But again, that's like, I think that's where it starts when people are trying to squeeze. I think it just means that the deal isn't as sweet, or the guy's not as motivated as maybe what he says he is. And that's kind of like what Greg said earlier, where it's like, hey, throw out some random, like wacky number that like, you'd be like, how did that guy come up with that? And then you can say, that's the number that's the most I can pay. And if you can't make it work, well, then I got to walk away. There's I can't pay any more than this. And that's why it's a funky number,
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, call it 389, 778, whatever. And then you go in at a 12 cap, knowing that you might be able to rock out that $4,100. Now you've got maybe something that you can tango with, but it's still like, it's like a lot of leverage, and that's why that number's off. Let's go 111,823. There we go. So now, I mean, now you're talking about making some sense. Now, I mean, that's your percentage rate of return, of course, that's where it gets cool, because you're talking about making. I mean, I don't even know what that number is, but
yeah.
I mean, it's funny.
100,000 or
yeah, maybe like 4 million %, maybe.
Oh yeah, is it? Yeah.
Have any money in the deal, so it's like but
Yeah, that's what intrigued me about it, with no money in the deal, and also that equipment thing. If I could, sell some of that and make a quick whatever 50 or 40 grand, whatever.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about. If you can find a way to where you can buy the deal at $400,000 and then immediately flip that equipment, put 50 grand in your pocket, or maybe even more, then you're really onto something, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
is it easy to get the interest only like payments from the bank? Is that normal or not really? Or is that kind of a hard sell?
No. I think
get that.
Well, like I was saying,
do they understand that if it's vacant?
Yeah, that exactly. because they want to help.
understand.
I mean, they're your teammate. I mean, if you think about it, like if
Yeah.
you succeed, they succeed because they want the interest payments. So they
Mhm.
want to make sure, like, hey, I know that you're not going to be having any payment or any cash flow from this, so you're going to be servicing out of your pocket. Let's give you 6 months or 8 months of interest only, so where you're not having to service any principal. And at that point, you can just, you know, it just gives you a little bit more time before that principal payment kicks in.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
Do you have that seller finance
Yep.
calculator?
Got it right here.
Could you just plug some stuff in there too? Could we
Yeah,
just
let's
see
do
how
it.
that?
Let's do it. So let's go back to here and let's say this thing was, I think I had it $3,900. $3,900 a month. The bank debt was, let's see here, 2537. 37. Taxes and insurance, you're not paying those. Debt service. Seller's going to leave, what was it, 100 and, oops. Let's say he left in this $111,000 and let's say that's what he left in. 1,000,000, maybe a 36-month balloon, ballpark it. So your net cash flow per month is 623 times 12. So I mean, you know, the math's off a little bit on my pro forma, but this kind of gives you just like an understanding of where, you know, what makes sense for him, you know. So, and you can use this, you know, of course, like showing them where, hang on, this is off. Wait a second. That's why. Hang on.
Put like what 400 there, or yeah.
400. I don't know what he bought it for in the past, but
Yeah, so it's paid off. Like I said, he's owned it for 50 years or whatever. So,
or let's say he bought it for 50 grand 50 years ago. So he's got no mortgage on it. Tax bracket. So there's kind of the real metrics. And then you of course can change this interest rate or this, you know, balloon payment.
okay.
But that's kind of where I would look at the math. You're paying him every month $740 and you're taking home $623 a month. Ballpark, you know. But if
And then
you
what does
the rent
the
thing, you know, you'll be able to refinance this balloon payment out and you're still in the deal for no money.
yeah, what does the like with the cost segregation, what does that look like?
Let's go check it out. So we go back over here, the returns on this, I kind of look at this internal or this intrinsic return on injected equity. So you're looking at basically after you get the depreciation deduction, you're looking at putting, you know, 54 grand back in your pocket, depending upon your tax bracket. So your depreciation deduction on this building is going to ballpark $111,000 after you make some cash flow. You deduct that, which is your passive loss. You know, it's this number, or it's your cash flow minus your depreciation deduction to equal 190 or 95,000. Multiply that by your tax bracket. Your refund is 38 grand, and then you just add back your cash flow to equal a total cash in pocket cash flow plus tax refund to equal $54,000. So you put, if you play it, the cards right, where you get the equipment for 50 and you get this deduction and refund for 50, you make 100 grand on the deal.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So that's kind of that's a little secret sauce right there.
Yeah. How much is
Can you
the
say that
cost
again?
segregation? Is that a percentage of like how much, like for Clay to do that? Is that a percentage of like
No, Clay
the
will just
price,
charge
or?
a flat fee. He'll charge, and it's not, he doesn't even, you have to hire a cost segregation engineer to come out there and actually do it. And they're like anywhere from $4 to $6 grand. Again,
Yeah.
your accountant, again, depending upon this is not my advice, whatever, of course, but like Clay's always just like, look, I've done enough of these things. I've seen hundreds of these things, and they're always ballparking at like 20 to 25%. How aggressive do you want to be? And I say, as aggressive as I possibly can be. He's like, sounds good. We'll run it at 25%, or 28% or whatever the type of building it is,
Yeah. Okay.
You can tell your accountant what you Or you can actually do a cost segregation study and pay the $6,000 for it, or the $4,000, and you'll actually get the real true number of what your deduction would be.
Oh, so most of the times you actually don't even do a cost, like you're not actually paying for it.
I have
He's just
personally,
ballparking it.
I've never paid for one.
That's
I
pretty
just
cool.
ballpark
Wow.
it. Yeah. I'm like,
Okay.
just go for it. He's like, look, I've done enough of these. I've seen the building. I'm gonna call this one like 26%. And I'm like, thank you, do it. Because what's going to happen is he'll come back and say, oh, Nolan, you're being audited. Boo-hoo, sad story. And the guy's going to say, oh, did you actually get a cost segregation study on this building? And I was like, no. All right, well, we needed you to do that, and then I'll go pay for it. But
Gotcha.
He's
Okay.
like, I'll go to bat for you. That won't happen. I'm like, knocking on wood. Let's pray. Let's pray it doesn't.
Cool.
So does that make sense? Are we on the same page?
Yeah, I just want to check one more thing.
Yeah.
I know you talk about the cash on cash. What is the cash on cash were at that price? 14. And I think you want that to be higher than the WAC, right? And I think the WAC was showing like 8%.
Yeah, let's look over here. Yeah. That's just your
Okay.
weighted average cost. Yeah, I mean, like you said, that's great. That's great that you remember that. Yeah. As long as your cash on cash is higher than that, then the deal checks.
Gotcha.
Super tight, well, then maybe you're going to want to spread that a little bit. But as long as that is your cash on cash is higher than that weighted average cost capital, you're in good shape. It's a good deal. You're not going backward. Sound good?
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. What I'll do then too is I will shoot this over because I got a 3 o'clock coming up here in 3 minutes. I will, I'm going to just, of course I recorded this, so I will just go and upload this. And if anybody has other thoughts or questions, shoot me a text or whatever. But what we're going to try and start doing is just like having the forum on school kind of be our dialogue as more often as we can, because other people are going to want to chime in. They have maybe questions too. So we'll get that thing rolling there. So sound good?
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Guys. All right, Mom. Appreciate y'all. I'll be in touch with you guys then. All right. See you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I got a call with a banker now. Bye.
Let's go. Heck yeah. Congrats. Go get them.
Thanks. Bye.
See ya.